Hey everyone, Duke here, and today we're going over the changes and a few tips for the master version of Vesper's host. To start, there's a couple of differences throughout the entire dungeon. First, the master version is at 2040 power throughout this entire dungeon, with a cap of 2020. This means that you will be forced to be a minimum of 20 power below the enemies at all times, but also means that as long as you are 2020 power, you will be as effective as is possible for this dungeon. However, there's also a couple things that you can do to even the playing field for yourself even further. First, I'd always recommend running 100 Resilience, as 100 Resilience gives you 30% damage reduction from everything, and is just as set and forget survivability as possible, which is always key for high-end content. Along with Resilience, using chest piece resist mods like Arc Resist and Solar Resist will be key, with Arc Resist coming in clutch against the hordes of fallen enemies throughout this dungeon, especially the snipers, while Solar Resist can be helpful against some of the short-range shotgun blast type enemies. For similar reasons, Risk Runner can be a really strong option in many parts of this dungeon due to its strength against incoming arc damage. Some survival-focused mods I'd recommend in all build setups are Recuperation and Proximity Ward. Recuperation is going to give significant chunks of your health back anytime you pick up an orb, and pairing this with things like Siphon mods, Reaper, or just your teammate's super orbs can allow for consistent heal packs. Proximity Ward is one of my favorite mods in the game and is extremely underrated and under-talked about in my opinion. Being able to get a powerful overshield along with the iframes that finishers can bring you can get you a get out of jail free card in so many sticky situations, and it is very, very helpful in a similar way to what we just talked about with Recuperation. Do note that for the boss encounters, it can be very beneficial to have a 2 loadout setup, with the second setup including triple surges on your boots for your heavy of choice, while the pre-DPS loadout can have Recuperation as mentioned, along with a scavenger mod for more ammo for future rounds of damage. Continuing on with the damage side of things, we want to try to make use of the current activity surges as well in this master version. There are always 2 damage bonus surges, which gives any damage of those types a 25% damage bonus. I often have people confused about these things because both the activity surges and boot mod surges are both called surge, but do note that these are 2 different things and absolutely do stack with each other, so make sure to take advantage of both. Now let's talk about the encounters. For the first encounter, the only real change is that there is an Overload champion that spawns after completing the right side heart room. Divinity with Cenotaph Mask worked out great for this encounter, as it could stun the Overload, but more importantly make heavy on all of the Brigs and Machine Priests throughout, while also making an easy-to-hit crit spot along with debuffing these tankier enemies. This allowed for consistent usage of heavy throughout the encounter for my teammates. The only other tip I have for this encounter is to note that there are 6 pads to check in every room, and 4 of them will always be correct, with 2 of them that are wrong. This means that if you find the 2 wrong pads, you can immediately call out to your teammate that all remaining ones are good. This can help in a few scenarios where you use process of elimination rather than checking each one individually, especially for the one on the left wall of the far left room. For the Servitor encounter, there will once again be Overload champions, this time 2 of them spawning before the Machine Priest spawns at the start, along with 2 more after each damage phase. Indebted Kindness did great work for this encounter, with it being Arc for the Surge, breaking the Arc Captain Shields, Volt Shot for both AoE ad clear and as well as providing potential Overload stuns, along with it just being a hard-hitting, easy-to-use special weapon that could easily take out the Shanks after being teleported. As for damage, it will depend on the given activity surges for the week, but some good options that I've used for this encounter are Parasite, Wardcliff Coil, and Dimensional Hypotrochoid with One for All. Do note that Tether is not disabled in the Master version, but can currently cause extreme lag or even crash your game, but any and all throw and forget type supers, especially AoE ones, will be beneficial here. Titan's Glacial Quake super is also one of the best options here for high damage, even more so on Stasis Surge weeks. On the safety and survival side of things, it doesn't get much better than Warlocks running healing grenades with Speaker's Sight to help both you and your teammates. There's reason enough to run Solar Void and Arc Resists in this encounter, with the Solar Bowling Balls and Arc damage from most of the enemies throughout probably the highest priority, but the Servitor can also provide some Void damage to keep in mind as well. The final encounter, the Corrupted Puppeteer, will once again make great use of a Warlock on Cenotaph with Divinity, or really any Trace Rifle to make teammates heavy. Making use of loadout swaps, potentially multiple loadout swaps here, is both extremely beneficial and extremely easy to do in this encounter, with multiple times in the encounter where you can go into your inventory with complete safety, especially before and after the damage phase, and even during the damage phase while in the safety room. The main change is that there will be a respawning barrier servitor that will spawn just outside each of the 2 bomb mechanic rooms. Killing this servitor is basically required, as you don't want it to protect the clone that you need to kill for the bomb. As long as you shoot the 4 operator pads and have your scanner somewhat ready to find the correct clone to kill right after killing this servitor, you should have plenty of time before a new one spawns to potentially protect a clone that you need to kill. Do note that if you don't have a Warlock, you can also use Aeons to finisher these barrier champions, maybe even farm a few in order to make sure that you still have a different way to get heavy ammo here. If for whatever reason a servitor is protecting the clone that you need, do note that super damage can go through the servitor protection in a pinch, or you can just try to kill or at least stun the servitor quickly before killing the clone. I personally really like either a heal clip aberrant action rocket sidearm or choir of 1 for this phase of the encounter, as both are quite strong at taking enemies down, with the heal clip more helpful towards survival while also not taking the exotic slot. As for damage, bait and switch GLs like Edge Transit, Cataphract, or the new VS Chill Inhibitor, if you can actually get the bait and switch roll, because it's apparently broken, are all great depending on the Surge active. Grand Overture is one of the most popular options as well, even more so on Arc Week. I'd also imagine Whisper of the Worm on Solar Weeks to be quite a good option with the ammo economy and length of DPS if you have exceedingly good aim, but I'm just not strong enough of a player to pull this off and wouldn't recommend it unless you are very comfortable hitting consistent crits while being flinched and in danger. Also note that if using Grand Overture, you can use any of the pads in the encounter either before rallying the flag or even after rallying the flag or just right before damage. Again, you should have some different ways of getting heavy between either Aeons or Cenotaph, but you can use the pads to proc your missiles and make sure that you are ready with a ×20 missile at the start of the damage phase. There is a cheese spot near the back left of the room to use for damage, but I've always just used the little tank near the middle of the room with a well for some safety. 2, if not 3 arc resists will be extremely beneficial here, especially in this part of the encounter, and do note that the lightning attacks can absolutely kill you here, even in a well, but jumping in the air just a bit before they attack will make it so that you do not take damage from them, but do note that these clones that are going to be around you and the boss itself will obviously still be shooting you here, but this is where the arc resists are going to come in. Lastly, I like to have a third loadout swap to Outbreak for the second half of the damage phase here after the bomb room, as in most situations you will likely run out of heavy on the first half of this phase. Just don't forget to switch your boot surges for this specific loadout to kinetic surges if you're using Outbreak, or again, whatever weapon you may be switching to at any point, as this is up to a 22% damage boost if running triple surges, so you might as well take advantage of it if you're just going to be pressing that one button to switch loadouts anyway. And that's all for today. I hope my video to the master version of Vesper's host was helpful, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.